Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah wahda, wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da. Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inu wa nastaghfiruh wa nu'minu bihi tawakkalu alayhi wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. May yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa may yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Amma ba'd. Qala Allah ta'ala fi Qur'anil Majid. Fa'a'udzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. Living in a society that is highly materialistic and full of consumerism, it's important that we have reminders for our souls very often about the dangers of materialism and the importance of being grounded in the Islamic understanding of how we spend our wealth. And I think today is a good day, an important day to discuss this topic, because today is Black Friday, the day when many of us spend a lot of money. It's a day when many of us make a lot of money, and for most of us it's a bit of both, right? And so it's important that we remind ourselves of the balance that Islam requires from us when it comes to our concept of wealth. Because there are two extremes in our understanding of Islam on the concept of wealth. On one extreme, there is this idea that wealth is evil, right? We hear people say things like, money is the root of all evil. This is not an Islamic concept. You don't find this concept in the Islamic books. Rather, the Quran, one of the words the Quran uses for referring to wealth is khair. Right? In Surah Al-Adiyat, Allah says, وَإِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ وَإِنَّهُ لِحُبِّ الْخَيْرِ لَشَدِيدٌ. That he is, or mankind is, very extreme in his love for khair. And khair here means wealth. So khair means good. But in this verse of the Quran, Allah uses it to refer to wealth, meaning wealth in of itself is good. Right? So on one extreme, we have people who say that wealth is something that is bad, and wealth is something a Muslim should not want, and wealth is something a Muslim should stay away from. On the other extreme, we have the society we live in where nothing is ever enough. Nothing is ever enough. That the billionaire is worried about somebody who has $1 billion more than him. That a person may have enough money to last them and their children and their children's children for their entire lifetime, but they're still worried, how can I make more tomorrow? And the Prophet ﷺ spoke about this when he said that mankind is such that if you give them a value of gold, they will want another value of gold. And so it's important for us to understand the middle part, the balanced middle part understanding of Islam when it comes to wealth. And that part is very simple. Wealth in of itself is good. Whether it counts for us or against us on the last day depends on two things: how we earn it and how we spend it. Right? When we look at the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam related to the Day of Judgment, where we will be asked 5 questions. Out of those 5 questions, 2 of them are related to wealth. Allah will not ask us on the Day of Judgment, how much money did you make? That's irrelevant to our akhirah. Whether a person lived a simple life or a wealthy life or somewhere in between, that is irrelevant to your akhirah. What we are responsible for on the Day of Judgment is, how did you earn it? How did you spend it? Did you earn your wealth in a way that is halal? Did you spend it in a way that is responsible? And so, on days like this, where many of us rush to spend our money, let us remind ourselves the importance of being responsible in our spending. Firstly, the fatwa. Is Black Friday, is it halal or haram? And over the years, every Black Friday I have this issue. This is actually the first year it never happened, where I'll get emails from people all over the world telling me Black Friday is haram. Not from scholars, from people who are not scholars, right? Because apparently everybody makes fatwas these days, right? So people will send emails saying Black Friday is haram, and when you ask why, no one can give an actual reason for it. So we go back to our principles of fiqh. And from the fundamental principles of fiqh, it's a very important one for everyone to remember. al-aslu fil ashyai al-ibaha. The original rule of anything is permissibility. Right? This is a principle of fiqh found in most of the madhabs. That the original rule of anything is permissibility. Meaning, things are halal unless you can prove it haram. Right? Things of this world are halal unless you can prove it haram. We prove something haram in one of three ways. Either the Quran says it's haram, or the Hadith says it's haram, or it is something that is harmful to society. Right? These are the three main ways that we figure out whether something is haram. If something is not harmful to society, it's not mentioned or hinted at in the Quran or Sunnah, then the default ruling is that it is halal. So if you have a business and you have Black Friday sales, the default ruling is it's halal. Right? If you want to take advantage of a Black Friday sale, maybe there's something you wanted to buy all year and it's on sale today, it is completely halal to buy. So let us not be the type of people who go around putting the label of haram on something, without any evidence. This is actually considered historically by the classical scholars. To put the label haram on something without evidence is considered a major sin, because you are changing the deen of Allah. Right? Because when you say haram, you're not saying I don't like it. You are saying Allah has prohibited it. And to say Allah has prohibited something where Allah has kept quiet about it is changing the religion of Allah. And this is why we find many of the earlier scholars, when they were unsure of something being halal or haram, or they were inclined towards haram but they had no strong evidence, and someone will ask them, is it halal? Their answer would be, I don't like it. Notice they won't say it's haram. They will say, I don't like it. This you see specifically in the life of Imam Malik. There are many, many quotations for Imam Malik where someone will ask him, is this halal or haram? And he would simply reply, I don't like it. Why? Because he was inclined to the opinion of it being haram, but he didn't have strong evidence. And he didn't want to use the word haram unless he was certain, without doubt, that Allah had prohibited it. So be careful of throwing the label haram around on just about anything. Rather, everything is halal unless you have clear evidence that it is haram. Having said that, as Muslims, we have to be, as we said in the beginning, responsible in how we earn and how we spend. And so, if you are on the earning side of Black Friday, if you are someone whose business benefits from this day, being responsible on this day means you don't deceive people with your sales. And we see many people do that. Something is full price, 40% off. Well, it's not really 40% off. That's just what the advert says to someone who doesn't know what the regular price is. Don't deceive people with your prices. Right? If it's 40% off, it better be 40% off. Otherwise, this is deception. And the Prophet ﷺ said about deception in business, whoever deceives us is not one of us. Right? You're not a true believer if you deceive people in business. Once the Prophet ﷺ, he was walking through the marketplace and he saw a man who was selling grains of rice. And he put his hand into the pile and he found that underneath the dry grains were some wet, damaged grains. And he asked the man, what are you doing? And the man admitted that he was hiding the damaged grains so he could sell the whole pile together as if there's nothing wrong with it. It was on that occasion that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever deceives us is not one of us. Notice it is mentioned in the context of business. So for those of us who run businesses, when we have our sales, make sure there is no deception. Whether it's in our sales prices, whether it's in the quality of our goods, whether it's any faults in the goods, all of these things we must avoid any deception. On the other side, remember on the Day of Judgment we ask two questions: how we earn and how we spend. What is meant by how we spend? Number one, you buy what is halal. Number two, we spend responsibly. We don't spend all our money and we don't miser our money either. We spend responsibly. Number three, a portion of our money goes to charity. We don't only spend on ourselves, but we give to others as well. Right? All of this is part of what's meant by you will be asked about how you spend your money. You'll be asked whether you gave charity. You'll be asked whether you spent on your family or not. Because the Prophet ﷺ said in another hadith, the best money is the money you spend on your family. The best money is the money you spend on your family. So there is thawab, there is a reward in treating your family. So this is another important aspect to look at. Are we spending on our families? Are we spending on others? Are we being responsible? All of this needs to be looked at when we spend money. And this time of the year, from now until January, is a time when most of us spend so much and buy so many unnecessary things. We end up in debt, we end up wasting money, and we end up having to throw half of it away because we realize later on, oh, I didn't need it, it was just on sale. So be responsible. Be responsible with how you earn, be responsible with how you spend, knowing that on the Day of Judgment, we are answerable to Allah for these two things. And again, a reminder, wealth or money is not haram. It is not bad, it is not evil. How we earn it and how we spend it, that's what matters. Money that is earned in the right way, there is barakah, there is blessing, and it can be a source of khair for us on the Day of Judgment. Money that is earned in the wrong way will bring us humiliation in both worlds. In both worlds. Because people who earn their wealth in unethical ways, Allah will ensure justice is done to them. And so be careful of how we earn, be careful of how we spend. May Allah make us from those who spend responsibly. May He make us from those who earn that which is halal. May He make us all from those who are self-sufficient and from those who are not in need of others when it comes to wealth. Allahumma kfina bihalalik wa haramik wa aghnina bifadlika amman siwak. Subhana rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أما بعد فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير حديث محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Normally when we talk at this time of the year, we remind people not to go overboard with their wealth. But this year there's another angle we need to remind ourselves of. And that's we're still in the midst of a pandemic. So it's not wise that for a sale price that we go to an overcrowded store or overcrowded mall and wait in that queue, risking our health and the health of our families just to get an item on sale. And so this is a reminder to each and every one of us to still be responsible with our health during this time. From amongst the principles of Islam and part of tawakkul is to take your precautions. Now there is a segment of our society going around shaming others for taking precautions. Telling you, oh, you don't have tawakkul. Right? We have people going around saying, oh, you're wearing a mask, you don't have tawakkul. Oh, you're social distancing, you don't have tawakkul. This shows a wrong understanding of tawakkul. And this understanding, we see it very early in our history. In the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, a plague broke out in Syria. And this was a devastating plague. Many of the great Sahaba passed away in this plague. From Abu Ubaidah ibn Jarrah, to Suhail ibn Amr, to Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan. May Allah be pleased with all of them. All these great Sahaba died in the plague of Syria and many others. So Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he was the Khalifa at the time. And he was on his way to Syria to inspect the land, to make sure that everything is running according to Islamic principles. And on his way there, the news reaches him. There is a plague in Syria. A consultation is made. He learns about the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith we all know because everyone has repeated it throughout this year. The hadith that when there is a plague in an area, do not enter it, and if you're already in it, do not leave it. Right? So like a kind of hinting at the idea of a quarantine, of separating those who are infected from those who are not. So hearing about this hadith, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu decides to go back to Medina. One of the Sahaba, who did not understand tawakkul properly at that time, he asked Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, Ya Umar, are you running away from the qadr of Allah? Look at his question. Very similar to what people tell us today. Right? Umar radiallahu anhu realizes there's a plague in Syria, he decides to go back to Medina. So someone tells him, are you running away from the qadr of Allah? Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu replies, yes, we are running from the qadr of Allah to the qadr of Allah. Because if being healthy is in our future, that's also qadr of Allah. If going back to Medina is in our future, that's also qadr of Allah. Whatever is happening is qadr of Allah. Right? It includes If someone is taking precautions, that is qadarullah. Why? Because nothing happens except what Allah wills. So this narration of Umar ibn Khattab teaches us the proper understanding of tawakkul at the time of pandemics, which is that you take your precautions, and taking your precautions is part of tawakkul. It is part of belief in qadarullah. It does not go against it. And so for those people who shame others about this, who tell others, why are you wearing a mask? Why are you social distancing? You don't have tawakkul. Reply to them, this is part of tawakkul. This is part of tawakkul. Allah has created means. We are taking the means, we are adopting the means, and we are trusting Allah. And so the same applies this week. That, with all these sales going on, people will be tempted to go and enter a crowded mall, enter the crowded store, and risk their health for the sake of getting an item on sale. Part of our tawakkul, part of our taking our precautions is that we stay away from large crowds. Shop at the smaller shops, at the quieter shops, or shop online. Right? Do what's wise to take care of your health and your family's health. Because at the end of the day, our health is an amanah from Allah, and our family is an amanah from Allah. And the great Sahabi Salman al-Farsi radiallahu anhu once told his good friend Abu Darda radiallahu anhu, he told him, "Wali badanika alayka haqqun." Your body has rights over it. Your body has rights over it. Meaning what? It is your responsibility before Allah to take care of your health. So let us not risk our health unnecessarily. Let us be people who put our tawakkul in Allah by adopting our means. So may Allah grant us all good health. May He protect us from this virus. May He end this pandemic soon, and may He grant all of us ease after this as well. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما سبحان رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين أقم الصلاة.